So, when I was a young kid, my dad made me watch all the Star Wars movies because he said it was an essential part of my so-called cultural education. And I didn't really mind. I really liked the movies. But what I remember is I was very impressed by this image of these two suns on the horizon of the planet Tatooine. And in my young mind, this was something that could only belong to the realm of science fiction. Because this could never be reality, right? Or maybe it could. Now, we've already had a little spoiler from Zephyrin's talk before. And so hopefully, so nevertheless, I will give you a little peek into the life of multi-star systems, which are stars that live their lives with one or more stellar companion. And hopefully throughout the talk it will become clear why the title, A Dance of Stars, would be a fitting analogy for this. But before I start, I want to list two questions that I will discuss this evening, and whose answer I hope you will all remember after this talk. So the first question is whether all stars in the universe are alone, like our sun. And the second question is whether a possible companion star could influence and affect the life of its companion star. So before I dive into these multi-star systems, I will give a little bit of introduction on single stars, as it might be useful to understand the behavior of these multi-stars later on. And what better way... what better way to do that than to look at our nearest neighbors. So in this picture you see the 53 closest stars to our sun in the Milky Way. And if you look closely, I think the first thing that stands out is that not all stars have the same color or have the same size, right? So here's a bit enlarged in this picture. So stars come in all colors and sizes. And astronomers actually have a classification for this. So on the left, you see the smallest stars, which are red, which are called M-type stars. And on the right, you see the largest stars, which are blue, that are called O-type stars. And in between, stars are classified with different letters. Now, it seems that these letters are kind of in random order, which they are. And I think it's a nice example of many things that don't make sense in astronomy. You can also see our sun is actually quite a mediocre star. Now, apart from size and color, stars actually differ, or there are many other differences between these stars as well. So let's compare the small and red M-type stars to our sun. So they're also much lighter. They're also much cooler, but still their surface is hot enough to even boil iron. They're much dimmer. They live very, very long, so up to hundreds of billions of years. And they're very common. So about 3/4 of all the stars in our Milky Way are these M-type stars. Now, these O-type stars, on the other hand, they're so they're much heavier than our sun. They're much hotter. They are much brighter. But they live for much shorter, so they only live about a few tens of millions of years, which of course to a human lifetime is still very long. And they're also very rare. So maybe only about 1 in a million stars is an O-type star. So not only do stars differ among each other, but they also change and evolve themselves. So here we see the life cycle of our sun. So we're now right here. The sun is about 4.5 billion years old. And since its birth, it has not really changed that much. But in about 5 billion years, the sun will actually start to grow and turn into something we call a red giant. After which it will end its life as a small and hot white dwarf. Yeah, so that actually means that in some point the sun will grow a few hundred times in its own size. If you look at the picture below, the Earth will actually be swallowed and evaporated. But it only happens in a few billion years, so we don't have to worry about this. Okay, so we've seen that stars come in all flavors, but if you look very closely, you might see that some of the stars are also grouped together, which means that they are gravitationally bound to each other. And that implies that many stars have companions. So, if we take a look at these 53 closest stars, we find that 26 of these stars are single stars and have no companions. That's 18 stars have one companion, which means that there are 9 binary stars. And finally, 9 stars have even 2 companions, which makes 3 triple stars. Okay, if we combine this information, we find that roughly half of all the stars have one or more companion and are therefore part of what we call a multi-star system. So, we've heard a little bit about single stars, but now let's move on to the interesting part, multi-stars. And I've divided it in 2 parts, so binary stars and triple stars. And first, I'll talk a little bit about these binary stars. So, what do binary stars exactly look like? Just like the Earth moves around the Sun, in a binary, 2 stars also move around each other. And this movement is mainly determined by the location of what we call the center of mass, which lies somewhere between these 2 stars. Now, an analogy would be 2 kids sitting on a seesaw, and in order for the seesaw to be in balance, the heavier person needs to sit closer to the pivot point. Yeah? And so in this case, the pivot point is the center of mass, and the heavier star lies closer to the center of mass. And along, okay, and so next we can draw circles around the center of mass for each star, along which these stars will move. But for convenience, let's make the stars a bit smaller, and this is going to take some time. We can start to move them. So as you can see, they move around the center of mass until they're back at their original position. And this is what we call one orbit. Now, afterwards, the stars will keep repeating the same movements. And that means that actually the motion of the binary stars is predictable and stable. Yeah? And this is something that was already actually figured out in the 16th century by the famous astronomer Johannes Kepler. Oh. Yeah. Oh. Okay. So, in contrast to single stars, these binary stars, they have kind of an imaginary shell around them that we call the Roche lobe. And within each of these 2 Roche lobes, the material is bound by gravity to the star. Yeah? So we've seen that for most of the stars alive, yeah, the star will stay approximately equal in its size. And therefore, it will sit quite comfortably within its Roche lobe. But near the end of its life, the stars can grow up to hundreds, even thousands of times its own size. And we can see what will happen then is that the star can exceed this Roche lobe. And so I have a question for everyone. Who thinks that the shape of the star will stay spherical? Yeah? And who thinks the shape of the star will not stay spherical? Yeah. Very good. I see a lot of hands. So as I mentioned, indeed, the material within the Roche lobe is bound to the star, so the star will actually take this sort of teardrop shape. And what's even more amazing is that through this point where these Roche lobes connect, material from the big star can flow onto the smaller star, which is shown in this artist impression. And we actually expect that this is a very common phenomenon in these binary stars. So, now that we all know all about binary stars, let's make it a little bit more interesting and add one more star to the equation. So I have another question for you. So we saw that binary stars have a stable and predictable motion. Here we see a video of a triple star orbit, and who thinks that the motion of these stars, so who thinks this looks stable and predictable? And who thinks this looks chaotic and unpredictable? Yeah, very good. So indeed, triple orbits are chaotic and unpredictable. This is often referred to as the three-body problem. If you're into science fiction books, I can really recommend this book. It's very fun. And it's sometimes also called the n-body problem, as it applies to any system with 3 or more stars or bodies. And just in very short, the reason why these orbits are chaotic is because in a triple system, each star feels the gravitational pull of 2 stars at the same time. Oh. Yeah, so generally there are 2 outcomes for such chaotic triple systems. So either one of the stars can be ejected and we're left with a binary and a single star, or 2 of the stars can collide and merge into one new star, in which case we're left with only binary. And so I'm going to show you some real simulations from one of my colleagues, Casper, who is somewhere in the room. You can try to spot him after this talk. And in this case, so if we play the video, so the 3 dots represent 3 stars. We can see that at some point the green dot over here will be shot out of the system. Yeah, right there. And we're left with a binary and a single star. Now, similarly, we can do the same. This video is a little bit longer. But in this case, if you follow the path of the red and the blue dot, you see that near the end they will actually move right into each other, which means that the 2 stars will collide. Right there. So, we've seen that triple orbits are chaotic, but there are actually some very specific configurations in which these triple orbits can be stable. And this is, I think, the most famous example. So here the 3 stars move along an H shape or infinity shape. And this is actually a stable orbit. And this was already figured out a few hundreds of years ago. And at that time, they already knew a couple more of these specific configurations. But nowadays, with the help of computers, there are thousands of such systems now. And here are just a few examples. So I really like these videos because they seem very geometrically satisfying. If you also like them, I've added a QR code. I'll show it at the end of the talk as well. And at that website, there's a lot more of these cool systems. Yeah, but unfortunately, for triple to be in such a specific configuration that it's stable, the chance is practically 0. And that leads us to the question why we actually observe triple stars. And to answer that question, we can have a look at our closest neighboring star system, Alpha Centauri, which consists of 2 large stars, Alpha Centauri A and opposite B, which orbit each other at quite a close distance. And they're orbited by a smaller star, Proxima Centauri, which is about 400 times as far from the other two stars. And so here I'll show a video of what that might look like. Right, so two close stars and one star far away. Now, before we've seen that triple orbits or motions are chaotic, because the three stars are at an equal distance and they feel the gravitational forces from each other. But in this case, the third star is so far away that it can actually effectively see these two stars as only one star, which kind of reduces this to just a binary system. So, on that note, I want to show you an example of the system with the largest number of confirmed stars. So Zephyr mentioned that there was also a 7-star system. I'm not entirely sure if we really know if that's a real 7-star system. And what's funny about this is that if we so this is a stable system, right? So we know that there are no three stars that can be at an equal distance from each other, because then it would be chaotic. And so what we see is that we have a binary, cluster A, which is quite compact. Then we have another binary, cluster B, which is also quite compact. And these two binaries, they orbit each other at a larger distance. And then after that, we have another binary, cluster C, which orbits binary A and binary B at even a larger distance. So you can kind of compare this to some sort of Matushka. So, to finally come back to my original questions. So the first question was whether all stars in our universe are alone, like our sun. Well, we've seen that the answer to that is of course no. Many stars, even close to our sun, have one or more companions. And secondly, we asked ourselves whether a companion star could affect or influence the life of its companion stars. And also we've seen, of course, some stars, we've seen that stars can perform intricate dances because of the gravitational pull of their companions, or they could even physically interact by, for example, transferring mass. Thank you.
Any questions? Yeah.
How stable is our solar system?
Our solar system. That's a good question. So, because our planets are, compared to our sun, they're quite light. They are quite stable, but I think, so in general, right, because the Earth, for example, does not have a very strong pull on our sun, because the Earth is quite light. But I think, I'm not an expert on this, but I think that people think that in the past, actually our solar system used to look a bit different. And that because we have like eight planets, there were some chaotic motions in our solar system, which actually rearranged it.
What's happening with planets that orbit the chaotic stars? Maybe that you showed.
Wait. So the figure that I showed was actually stable, or at least stable for a very long time. So I think you mean this one?
Yes.
Or so this is actually quite a stable system because, as I explained, the third star is very far away from the other two stars.
Yeah. And what about the one that you showed where they either collapse or become binary and singular?
Yeah, so this one.
Yes.
Yeah, so if there would be a planet there, then you would have to read. Can you go a few slides back? You should read this book. That's a good question. Yeah, I don't know, and I don't even know if we've observed planets. The problem is we don't observe these chaotic systems because they only live for a very short time. Yeah. So what could happen is that maybe a planet can be bound to one of these stars, and if that star is ejected, maybe the planet can move along with that star. Yeah. Or maybe the planet itself could also be shot out of the system.
Unlucky planet.
Yeah, over there.
Just a crazy question, but what do you mean by very short time? Like, in terms of human years or
Sorry.
years? What do you mean by a very short period of time?
It could be days. It could be maybe it could even be years. But anything that happens on so the lifetimes of stars, they are millions to billions of years, right? And so compared to that, it's actually quite short.
Any other questions? Maybe in the back? No? Yeah.
Is it possible to track these crazy systems? I mean, is it possible that our sun was ejected from one of these binary systems? And now we are alone?
Could you repeat the last?
Yeah, like in the three body or more, it's more likely that one of the stars get ejected. So is it possible to track these stars? And so that maybe our sun that is alone in this?
Yeah. So actually, that's a good question. So we, for example, in particular regions in our galaxy where stars are very close together, and so in that case, it's very likely that stars move close to each other, and if three stars, let's say three stars at the same time, they move close to each other, then one of them can be shot out of this dense region, and that's something we call runaway stars because they run out of their cluster, and that's actually something we observe. But we are not 100% sure if these chaotic interactions are the reason, or basically cause these runaway stars, because there's also different theories. Yeah.
Maybe one last question? Okay, then there's time for Floris again.